All right, so it's 8 o'clock and it looks like I have three people watching. I put a Facebook post up recently that, being that there were 1.8 thousand members of this group, that it might be the largest audience I've ever spoke to. But three's enough. So let's start this meeting off with the serenity prayer. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. So my name is Mike Towers, and I am an alcoholic. My sobriety date's November 13th of 1998. My home group is the Monument Beginners Group, which we just started at the treatment center that I work at in East Baltimore. So I'm really excited about that, and I have worked the steps with the sponsor and try to work the steps in my life on a daily basis. I see a buddy of mine, Ryan, his name popped up, and I just brought his name up the other day. I've known Ryan since the 7th grade. I remember I had moved from Columbia, Maryland in 7th grade at Sykesville Middle, and I remember praying outside the office that I just make friends and I'm not getting any fights. And I went into homeroom, and Ryan just turned around and stared at me for probably a solid 10 minutes before I asked him what the heck he was looking at. And Ryan happened to be the most popular guy in school, so I picked a fight with the most popular guy in school from the beginning. So Sykesville Middle School started off wonderfully for me. My first drink wasn't long after that. It was right before freshman year of high school. I was invited to a party at Terry's house, and I thought that I was invited to the party because I was one of the cooler kids or because I got in a lot of trouble. Turns out that my girlfriend was 16 and had a car, and my cousin Noah worked at Liberatory's restaurant, so we could steal all the alcohol that we could get in her car and drive down to this party. So I was kind of a mule, which I believe is why I was invited. And if Dante's watching this, I've already made an amends. I told Dante Liberatory that I had robbed this alcohol back in 1989, 1990, and he just said, you're an AA now. Go out there and make a difference, and that's amends enough, which I thought was awesome. One of my more favorite amends. So driving down to that party, I didn't know, reputation was, going to be everything. I mean, I'm ready to go into high school, and I keep thinking like, what am I supposed to drink? What kinds of alcohol, how much and for how long? And, it's like this voice kind of stepped up and said, you just drink whatever they give you, whatever it is, as much as they give you for as long as you can. And it was like my alcoholic brain was just wired that way. And, and that's just the way I was out of the gate. And I went out to that party, and that's exactly what I did. And I blacked out at some point. I don't know when, but I know that I came out of a blackout completely naked in the middle of Terry's house in a panic because I don't have any clothes on. And when you're a guy that's, going into 9th grade and you're worried about your reputation, you're completely naked at your first party. That's how you get one of those nicknames like Tiny or something. So I was in a panic, and I was able to find clothes, thankfully. And the next thing I remember was waking up over the toilet in a lot of pain. And I don't remember saying I'm never doing that again, and I don't remember saying I can't wait to do that again. But the guys that I hung out with, we played high school football, we signed prom promises, we weren't going to party. It's just not what we did. And so for 4 years, the most I had done by the time I graduated high school was I smoked marijuana 2 times. And I smoked marijuana down the bottom at Sykesville, and I remember Eric and TJ locking me out of the house, and I thought I was out there for hours, and it turned out it was only like 10 minutes. And then next thing I remember, I was eating macaroni and cheese out of a pot with a wooden spoon. So that was marijuana for me in the beginning. Marijuana for me was like, like a dog running on a linoleum floor, just like a whole lot of movement, but the dog really didn't get anywhere. And that's, I couldn't even, formulate a sentence high on marijuana. So that never really, my goals weren't being accomplished on marijuana. But that's all I did until senior week. And when senior week happened, it's like, even though 21 is the legal drinking age, it's like senior week is when you start. And at that point in my life, I had $1,000 saved up in a savings account. It's the most money that I had saved up to that point in my life. I just saw Dottie. Dottie just logged in. We got a whole crew going now from the 7th grade. I'll tell you that right now. I spent $400 and had the neighbor buy me alcohol and marijuana, and off to senior week I went. And, from the moment I got there, it was crack a beer and smoke and party, and that was it. I mean, if I made it to the beach, that was great. But we got there on a Sunday, and I'd say by Thursday I was really, really sick. I had gotten pneumonia and laryngitis, and I was so sick that I would party and just do whatever I could until about 2 a.m. I'd pass out. I'd sleep till about 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and then just take as much Advil as I could to numb my throat enough to continue partying. And, at that senior week trip, 3 of the guys that went with us were Eagle Scouts. The highest scouting honor you can go. Be prepared is just what they just knew all about it. And they're like, Mike, you're sick, man. You should go to a walk-in clinic. And I said, well, a walk-in clinic costs $65, and that's like 3 30-packs of Red Dog beer and about $20 worth of weed. And I didn't need to spend beer and weed money to find out I was sick. I knew I was sick. And so I just kept going. And when I got back to Carroll County that Saturday night, I looked so bad, my dad took me to the emergency room. And I don't know if the doctor was saying what he said to scare me or whether it was the truth, but either way, it kind of gave me the same, stark realization. But he said, you're almost dead. You're dehydrated. You're about a day away from death. And so from the very first time I decided to drink, I almost killed myself. And it didn't matter, because once I took a drink, my own health didn't matter, and whether I lived or died did not matter. All that mattered was the next drink. And that's how it continued. I ended up at Frostburg State University. I wanted to play football, and I really had to stretch out the athleticism to make that team and to get there at Frostburg. And Wednesday night was you pay $5 to get in a frat house and drink, and Thursday night you use a fake ID, and then the weekends that I didn't travel with the football team because I wasn't on the varsity travel team. So when we didn't have a home game, it was just party over the weekends, and that's how I drank. And so I drank kind of like from Wednesday to Sunday, and my grades came back after that first semester, and it was 2 Fs, a D, and 2 Bs, academic probation. And my grandfather paid for that first semester, and he wasn't going to pay for that effort again. So he sent me to community college, and I went to Carroll. And my first semester at Carroll, pretty much behaving the exact same way, was 2 Fs, a D, and 2 Bs. And the best, other than the senior week trip, example of just alcoholism, like it's written in the big book, was my Huck Finn exam for English 102, my second semester of college at CCBC. I hadn't read a page of Huck Finn, but we were supposed to write an essay about Huck Finn. So I just figured, well, it's Sunday night, the exam's on Monday. I'll just read the first 20 pages, the middle 20 pages, and the last 20 pages, and learn enough people, places, and things to bullcrap my way through this exam, and that would be that. And the thing about it is I had to. I spent $800 on the course. At that point, it was 5 months of time, and if I didn't study for this exam and get a C, I would waste the money, waste the time, and have to do it all over again. So it was like, it was do or die. Now, my house at that time was the $5 cup solo party house in Sykesville, Maryland. And Saturday night we had a party, jungle juice and all sorts of alcohol. I hung jalapeno Christmas lights like all over the place. And, I don't know where I got those from, a flea market or something. But, it was, we turned into a little dance party, and that's how it went down Saturday. And I just basically told my friends, Sunday, just stay away, because I got school, I got college. And Eric and Mike decided to come by anyway because my dad was never home, and there weren't any other homes, people my age that had a bunch of alcohol in the basement and no parents around. And so they showed up, and one thing led to another, and Eric basically said, I think I can outdrink you. And it's like Back to the Future when, I was called a yellow or a coward. And I had to defend my honor. And so we went shot for shot, and Eric drank his 8-shot and shotgun to beer. So I had to drink my 8-shot and shotgun a beer, and I blacked out, and I woke up almost completely naked. I think I was in my underwear this time, so it was an improvement. And I don't know what it was with alcohol and clothing, but I had my arm around my one buddy I played football with, and we were having one of those deep talks, where what impact you're gonna make on the world and stuff. And then I went back out, and I woke up the next morning, and I was, it's like 10 of 8. The class is at 8. And, I got to get in the car and understand for the first time that you can drive drunk in the morning. And that's what I did. I barely kept it together to get down 97 into CCBC and or Carroll Community College. And I went in there and promptly flunked the exam. I mean, I threw some stuff on paper, but I looked at it and it was illegible because I couldn't even stop my hand from shaking. And so I flunked the course. And again, it's like when I take a drink, I don't circle back to my English 102 homework or study for my economics exam. Once I take a drink, I can't stop. And so when the big book talks about, we get tight at absolutely the worst time, I mean, that was my story, only a year into my drinking. So I managed the next year to get enough grades together to go to Shepherd College, where a buddy was playing football, to try to play football there. And I started with 5 classes, ended with 3. And what was pretty significant about Shepherd was my roommates. 3 of them were all belonged to the coolest fraternity on campus. One of them was a captain of the football team, and all of them played football. And our dorm was where it was at, and that's where the parties took place. And if it wasn't there, it was their frat house, which I could go to. And nothing changed. 5 classes to 3 classes. I had brought a girlfriend on campus. She was from back home, and I'm that kind of guy that when he starts drinking, he calls his girlfriend up and says, you don't love me. Like, why don't we break up? And because I need the affirmation. I need you to tell me, no, I love you. No, I don't want to break up. But this particular night, she said, sounds like a great idea. Let's break up. And when you break up with a girlfriend you didn't intend to, drinking is the solution. And I ended up at the dorm. So party was in full gear. I made my first, extra large Taco Bell cup with about that much Coke and about that much Captain Morgan's, and started getting it on. And I got hit with a 2-liter bottle of Coke in the back of the head by John. And he said, "You're not making your drinks anymore." And my next one was this much Captain Morgan's and about that much Coke. And blacked out. But before I did that, I made a 9 o'clock phone call to my girlfriend to tell her that I wanted her back. And I know this because I heard it the next day, and it was, couldn't understand a word. But I passed out, luckily. And then I woke up at 1 a.m. And like, as soon as I woke up, the first thing on my mind was I got to get my girlfriend back. And I'm in Shepherdstown, West Virginia, and she's at LaSalle University in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. And I get in the car, and after doing the crime scene investigation, it looks like it took me about 2 hours and 15 minutes to get there through the mountains of West Virginia and up 95. I knew I threw up once, and I went through tolls. And to do that, I had to have averaged about 93 miles an hour the whole trip. And, when you pass out and black out in Shepherdstown, West Virginia, and you come to in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, it's scary. It starts to get scary. And that was leading up to 1998. That would have been November, December 1998. So I left with my 3 classes, my 2 drops, and I ended up at Towson University, where there I could commute and sleep on Dad's couch and go to Towson University. And I wasn't on campus about a week, and I saw a buddy of mine named Chris, who also went to Sykesville Middle School. And Chris said, Mike, you just got done playing 3 years of college football. I mean, you're in great shape. You should come out for the rugby team. And I thought, man, that's great. I got purpose again, and let's go. And now the way we drank on the rugby team is on Tuesday nights, we'd have a couple beers after practice. And I mean, when I say a couple, that's what normal students did. They had a couple beers, and then they went into the process of like doing schoolwork, studying, or whatever, college kids do. Wednesday night, same thing, drink a couple after practice. Thursday night, we would have a mixer with a sorority where like maybe we'd handcuff ourselves to a sorority girl that night and see how long you could stay handcuffed to that person. And so that was a full kegger at the rugby house. And then Friday night, we would drink in whatever town we traveled to play at, or at home if we were playing at home. And then Saturday, we would party with the opposing team afterwards. And, I can remember one story where my first game was at Salisbury University, and I got cleated in the back of the neck by a guy because I did something in rugby as like an unwritten rule, and that's kind of the punishment. But, I want to fight the guy now. I mean, he cut me and my neck's bleeding or whatever, and this is part of the game, So at the party afterwards, I see him, and I'm like, there's the guy. And I'm telling this guy, Kenny, who'd been playing rugby at Towson forever, like, there's the guy. I'm going to get him. And he said, no, you're not. I mean, this is a game. We're a family now. It's over. It's on the field, blah, blah, blah. So, but then the big bottle of whiskey started getting passed around, and between the beer and whatever else, and the whiskey were tipping back, I was fading fast. So they came to me and they said, look, Mike, the intercollegiate scholastic whatever spoons champion is here at Salisbury University, and we think that you can defeat him. We know that you have the heart. We've seen it. If there's anybody that could defeat this guy and become the new national champion at spoons, it's you. And they got me all psyched up, and I was like, man, whatever you guys need, I'm in it. To win it, I'd die for you guys. You get when you had a little too much, I'm dying for people now I just met. And so I end up in the kitchen of this rugby house in Salisbury, and all of a sudden some music plays, and I can't remember what it was, but it was like this guy's walkout music, like WWF, and he comes down the stairs, and he's ripping off his shirt, and slapping himself in the head and getting all crazy. And in the kitchen he comes, and he's ready to play spoons. And I don't even know what the heck we're doing. But here's the game. They're going to give me a spoon. And I'm going to stick it in my mouth. And he's going to bend his head down. And then I'm going to take the spoon, and I'm going to hit him in the back of the head with it. And then he's going to do the same thing to me. And the first person that taps out, the other person's the winner. So I thought, I got this. So I go ahead and take the spoon. I get first dibs. I'm the away team, and I hit him with this spoon, and I can just remember thinking, you know what? I don't, it doesn't matter how hard I do this. I'm never going to hurt anybody with this spoon. So I bend my head down, and then he does the same thing, and I'm like, this is a joke. Like this, I didn't even feel that. Like, this is crazy. But, I do it like 2 more times, and now my gums are bleeding from the spoon, and there's 150 people at this party, and they're all cheering me on, and I got all of Towson on my shoulders right now to carry the team to victory. And so I'm going to try as hard as I possibly can. But when I put my head down the third time, I got hit with something that felt like a sledgehammer. And so I was like, wow, I don't know how he did that. So I, positioned this spoon as best as I could. And I gave it a go again, but I still wasn't getting anywhere. But I was determined to figure it out. And I put my head down again, and I got hit. It felt like a brick. And I tried one more time, and the next time I put my head down, I got hit. And I'm like, that's not a spoon. And 150 people said, no, it's a pot. And they were hitting me with a cast iron skillet. So that was my first rugby game. And again, we drank from Tuesday to Saturday. And if you're an alcoholic like I'm an alcoholic, and you drink from Tuesday to Saturday, college is, I loitered. I had a meal card. I ate at the cafeteria. And I played rugby and drank. Courses, I don't remember any of them. I have 2 full medical withdrawals, 2 semesters in a row, because I was sick with alcoholism, and to show for that year. But man, rugby did it fast, and then. I know I talked to Shannon, and this is kind of a mixed meeting, and if I hopefully have that right as I continue on with my story, that's what I'm going with, is that I have that right. And I started hanging out with a guy in February who, it's like his full-time job was to get loaded. And it was like he taught me tricks like putting a fake deposit slip in a Bank of America ATM and being able to pull out that $10 and, going to Shoney's and, walking out on the check and just all sorts of craziness. And he introduced me to cocaine. And when I did it the first time, man, I debated about NBA basketball a whole bunch and was, ready to go and could just talk, and I wasn't hungry. And it was amazing that day. And it was a couple of weeks later, at this point, I got the medical withdrawal that spring semester in 1998 at Towson, and Going into the summer, I got a call from that same buddy, and he's like, "Hey man, I got a surprise for you. Come on down." So I headed to his place, and it was cocaine for the second time. And nothing really notable happened that night. I remember somebody calling me over to their laptop and showing me something on the laptop with a horse and somebody else, and some activity was going on. And I know it was the sickest and craziest thing that I have ever seen. And I'm on cocaine. I mean, I didn't know that it made me paranoid, and I think I'm going to die. My heart's beating really bad, and I'm telling everybody I think I'm going to die. I think I need to go somewhere, and they're like, "No, not what you did." But I see this, and it's got me all shook up. And then I play NBA Live on the PlayStation or something, and it's like the first time I had ever been beat, and I thought that was notable. So obviously, cocaine doesn't make my performance better. But what happened the next morning is, I was working for a moving company in Westminster. I made $7 an hour cash. It was hard work. It was fine work. I would take the cash and end up at Gators in Towson drinking quarter beers, and wake up in some neighborhood like Park Heights trying to get marijuana, and always get ripped off. They always tell you, "Give me your $10. I'm going to go around the corner and get it from this guy." They never come back. Never once have they ever went and got my marijuana and come back. And you'd think after the third, fourth, or 10th time you wouldn't do that anymore. But I have a heart for trusting people, seeing the best in them. And those were my nights. And so I couldn't wake up for this moving job. And I sat up in bed and I said, doing cocaine that first time was fine. I wanted to experiment with that. But, the second time was a never. I mean, I'm never going to do anything like that. So my father at this time, he had been in Alcoholics Anonymous since January 8th, and this is July 25th. And, he was an alcoholic. He was a drug addict. I mean, he had wrecked so many cars, and he bought one car that the family never saw. He bought it at 7 a.m., and he had it on its roof on the top, flipped upside down before he made it home. So the pills and the alcohol, and I remember at 16 years old, he went to pick me up at Beck's in Sykesville, and he wrecked the car into an embankment on the way to get me. It's like 9 or 10 o'clock at night, and I'm walking home because I just figured he fell asleep, and I come to, and there's a medevac chopper landing on Gaither Road, and police everywhere, and that was routine. He drove my sister and I around drunk all the time, and I say this to say that on January 8th of 1998, I found him flatline on the floor. I had actually beaten the ambulance there. We were following the ambulance home from lifting weights, and the ambulance had missed the house and turned around. So when I ran in and saw him on the floor, it was rough. And so they revived him, and off to the hospital he went. They told me at the hospital he was down for like 9 minutes, that the outcome wasn't gonna be good, and I could just get out of there and they would call me. So that's what I did. And when I picked him up from Shepherd Pratt is the inpatient that he went to for however many days till the insurance kicked him out, I had a Ruger P97 handgun, and when I picked him up, I put it on the center console, and I said, "Dad, if you drink again, I'm gonna kill you." Because my sister and my brother and I are just so sick and tired of the pain that you put us through, and the driving drunk, and just not knowing whether you're going to come home or not. And if this is it, this is your one shot. You drink her, and I kill you. And I was serious. And so here we are 7 months later, and I need help. And I went downstairs and I asked him for help. And this period of time, this 7 months of sobriety, he used to come out of the bedroom after saying prayers and readings, or whatever he did. I know what I do, so I'm sure it was similar to what he did. And he would say, "Mike, how are you doing?" And I'm face into the cushions with my jeans and Timberland boots still on, hungover as all heck, thinking he wants to ask me how I'm doing. Like he cares, or he has some nerve, considering who he was, to now all of a sudden be okay and ask me how I am. And I'd try to pick these fights with him, but he wouldn't engage. He had a peace about him that I had never really seen, and he had God wrapped all around him, and he was sober. And on July, having not told me what to do, or told me I was an alcoholic, or said I had to do X, Y, and Z, but just showing me that attraction, I went to him and I said, "Dad, I need help." And I ended up a meeting that night, and they clapped for me and gave me a chip, and there wasn't a lot going on in my life that anybody clapped for. And my love language is words of affirmation. So, when I heard people clap, it filled my spirit up for sure. But the other thing was, these people at AA, I mean, they seemed to genuinely care about what was going on in a world that nobody really cared, or at least the world I hung out with. Everybody was so selfish that no one cared. And when I would come back to a meeting, they would remember my story. They'd remember my name. And I thought, man, this is definitely a safe place. This is definitely a place where, I felt at home, but I'm 21 years old. I just took my first legal drink 6 months ago. I mean, there's no way that their way of life is going to be as good as, I heard it today in a sermon, as the way of life that I could potentially lead or have led drinking, right? So I'm going to get sober and then kiss all that other stuff goodbye, and the sober life is going to be better. Plus, I look at the steps and it's like, help another person. Like, I need a bag of money, a lawyer, a girlfriend, a car, insurance, a job. I need a whole lot of things, and I really don't see how helping other people is going to get any of that. But I know I faked it till you make it. Now, I thought fake it till you make it meant just keep smoking weed, drink, go to meetings high, lie about it, and just keep coming back. I mean, that's what I thought fake it till you make it meant. Just fake it and lie. And my fake it till you make it, that brand had worked for me. So that's what I did. And then by September, or it was right before September, it was the first semester in the fall of 98 where I didn't go to college. I was a dropout completely. It's my first semester I didn't attend since 95 when I graduated high school. So I'm a college dropout. I'm working at a car dealership. And they decided to give me a sponsor. I haven't gotten a sponsor yet. We're going to give Mike a sponsor. So I tell you what, I see that the number of people went to 6 and it was 8. If anybody else was here and the number went from 8 to 6, I got to tell you, I got feelings about that. So 2 people decided, you know what, this guy sucks. I'm getting out of here, but I'll get I'll get over it. But I digress. So I decide, all right, yeah, give me the sponsor or whatever. And I figure the sponsor's gonna quiz me on the big book, right? So it's gonna be a book report, and I'm a college student, right? A college dropout. I'm gonna, slam this book report. I'm at this car dealership reading this big book, and to my left is a guy that's on pills, and 2 stalls down is a professional pothead whose life has gone nowhere and is 10 years older than me. And then our manager does heroin, and he meets his dealer out in the lot and gets what he needs every day. And these are the people that I've surrounded myself, and my friends, they're in school, and they're like a semester or 2 away from becoming lawyers, account executives, and accomplishing whatever it is that they want to accomplish. And I was on a different path that would never intersect with my goals and my hopes and my dreams. Because as long as alcohol and drugs were in them, nothing else was happening for me. So I'm reading this story, and I can remember the 3rd paragraph of the big book connected with me right away. It said, I nearly flunked my law course, and that's when I knew that law wasn't for me. And I was like, Bill, if I flunked the law course, it wasn't for me, obviously. If she dumped me, she wasn't for me. If, they had a problem with me, there was something wrong with them. I never looked at me as having a problem or being a part, in anything. It was always them. So as soon as I heard that, I'm like, wow, man, this guy's on my wavelength. And I kept reading, and, for you familiar with the big book, it's, I just saw what Amy typed. That's amazing. Awesome. So I keep reading, and, that story, I mean, he goes down, I mean, to the point where it's like, he's with the doctor and her, and the doctor's saying, this is how he's gonna die. Not even talking to Bill anymore. Bill's a lost cause. He's completely hopeless. I mean, at that time, they locked you up in a sanitarium. There was no solution. So he is thinking, well, this is a drag because I love her, and there was love there. But he is resigned to the fact that, yeah, that's exactly how I'm going out because I don't know what to do. I've tried so many times and I can't stop. So this is going to be the the end for me, utterly hopeless. And I think about the Bible, if you guys are familiar, that he wrote his sobriety date in the Bible, but then he crossed it out. And then he would promise her again he was going to get sober, and he'd put the new date in and he'd cross that out. And I know if I saw that Bible, what a wreck I would be. Just connecting that story to the Bible and how she probably believed in him every time. And how it must have sucked for him to believe it every time and then not be able to accomplish it. And then he ended up not believing it anymore. He was, again, utterly hopeless. And so I kept reading, and shortly after that, it says how dark it is before the dawn. And you know, my story is not your story, and there are stories that are so much tougher than dropping out of college, and you know, that being the story there. But I know this much: no matter what your story is, that feeling of darkness when the lights are out and you're utterly hopeless is synonymous to anybody that's been at rock bottom. And what I didn't know at that time, and I know now, and one of my best friends said this from a stage. And he said, when you're at rock bottom, you're just right for God's grace. And I didn't know that. A couple nights later, I went out with buddies. We were drinking down in Fells Point. I was at Max's on Broadway. I lost a pool match, so I broke the pool stick over the pool table, and they, you know, just pointed at the door, and at that point I'd gone into a blackout, and I went into the next bar. And what I was told happened, because I don't remember it, was I was in the bathroom and somebody had butted in front of me, and I used a racial slur to tell him, you know, hey, get out of the way. And the next morning, you know, when I was told that story, I mean, it wasn't who I was. It wasn't something that I would ever say. And I am a drug and alcohol counselor, and I have been for 18 years, and I can take out the diagnostic statistical manual of mental health disorders, and we can go down it, and we can let that determine, based on a number of factors, including tolerance and withdrawal, whether or not you have a substance abuse disorder. We can do the 20 questions, which is very effective. There's a lot of things that we can do to determine whether or not you have a problem with alcohol, or I could have figured out if I had a problem with alcohol. But two definitions here. If alcohol changed your personality, right? If I drank clear alcohol or beer, I want to wrestle with you and hug you and kiss you and have a blast. But if I drank Hennessy or any dark alcohol, I would rip a car antenna off and try to stab you in the throat with it. It changed my personality. So the fact that I said that told me that I shouldn't have alcohol in my system in any form, because it changed who I was, and it made me a bad person, a hateful person. And the other definition, if your alcohol and drug use causes problems, and despite those problems you continue to drink and use and cause more problems, then it's a problem. And that's as simple as it gets. And when I got that first academic probation and that second semester with 2 Fs, a D, and 2 Bs, and then I dropped out of college, a normal person goes, you know what? I got to make the correlation here that my drinking, smoking weed, is keeping me from passing college. I'm wasting money, I'm wasting time, and I'm getting nowhere. But I couldn't. Alcohol was a problem. I couldn't see it. It was affecting my life. If alcohol or drugs are a problem and it's causing problems in your life, and you keep drinking despite those problems and cause more problems, and alcohol and drugs is a problem. So that was September 1st, I believe, of 1998, and I've never had a drink since. For the next 2 months, I smoked weed when I could. I traveled with a company, and when we would travel, you know, people would bring weed, and we would smoke weed in the hotel rooms and stuff like that. And this particular night, we're in D.C., and I got a hotel room in D.C. for this job at the Washington Hilton at convention. And my dad is going to an A meeting, and he says, you know, Mike, do you want to go? And I told him I was sick, so I got that shame and guilt on me that I lied to him, and I'm not going to a meeting. And I'm in this hotel room smoking weed with about 8 other guys. And, you know, I said out loud, I said, I don't want to do this anymore. And Brian, you know, I can remember like it was yesterday, said, you don't have any power over this. Every time we get together, you say you don't want to do it anymore, and here you are yet again. And so when they left that night, I thought long and hard about that, and I made the decision to get on my knees and ask God for help. And this wasn't a God that I believed in. I prayed to God outside of Don Powell's office in the 7th grade not to call my father. God, please don't let Mr. Piles call my dad, And when Mr. Piles called my dad, God went away. He couldn't exist. And that night I didn't get on my knees and pray to a God that I didn't know and didn't believe in because because of faith. I got on my knees because I no longer had faith or believed in myself anymore. I was at that utterly hopeless desperation, that Bill was at. And I, being working in a treatment center right now, which is what I do full time now, it's one of those things where I said, in the 12 and 12, it talks about being at shipwreck. And for those who've seen A Perfect Storm and can remember Mark Wahlberg, like out there on the water, even the Titanic, when you see Jack out there, what either of them would have done for a life preserver, they would have reached out for it like their life depended on it. And I believe, though I truly believe that there are multiple modalities and ways that you can find sobriety, that Alcoholics Anonymous, well, you know what, I'm gonna hold off on that right there. But that there are other ways other than Alcoholics Anonymous, but that I think you have to have that sense of desperation that your life absolutely depends on it. You have to reach for it like it's the life preserver. And when I got on my knees that night, I didn't believe myself anymore. I was at that point, and I said, God, please help me. And I fell asleep. And the next morning I woke up. Now in 1998, any morning that the alarm went off, it hurt my brain. I was already 15 minutes late for whatever I had to do. I would pick something up off the floor, throw it on, and I would roll out the door like a cyclone that ripped through everything and everyone that got in the way of what I wanted. And if you looked in the rear view, it was just wasted potential, ruined relationships, failure, defeat. I mean, it was destruction. And every day in 1998 was a day where I said, you know what, I'm not going to do this anymore. I'd wake up on somebody's couch and try to figure out where the heck I was. I wasn't in my 8 a.m. course, I know that much. And I would say, that's it, I'm never doing this again. And I would throw the marijuana into the grass and not drinking. And every night I'd be at Gators drinking quarter beers and then driving to find the marijuana I threw in the grass. I mean, I smoked more grass, like Kentucky rye than I did marijuana, okay? So explains a lot probably. And every day I wasn't going to do it, and every day I did it, hopeless. But that morning I woke up and I sat up in bed and I had this peace that I'd never experienced before that, and I'd never experienced since. This peace that I knew without a shadow of a doubt that I would never drink or use drugs again for the rest of my life on November 13th morning of 1998. And so I don't know how helping people and working steps and all that's going to help me get the things that I need, but I tell you what I don't want to lose, and that's what I just got. From utterly hopeless to full of hope, resounding belief that I'm going to be okay, alcoholism removed, a recovered alcoholic, recovered from a seamlessly hopeless state of mind and body. Didn't want to lose that. You could have told me to do anything at that moment, and I would have done it to keep what I had. And so I went and did the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous, and couldn't wait to do a fourth and fifth step. How amazing it was for those of us who've done them, what it does. 6 and 7, to kind of take a look at obviously what comes out of the fifth and the fourth, and what I had to, just to be a decent guy, decent person, and then doing 8 and 9 and the feeling that comes with not looking at your shoelaces anymore because you've made all wrongs right, and that you can look anybody in the eye because you know what? I did the best that I could. I don't know what more you want from me, but I'm good with me today. And at that point, because it says having had a spiritual awakening as the result of these steps, to just grow with God and to be able to go out and help other people. And that's when I realized the magic of Alcoholics Anonymous and the thing that they discovered, which, I know they plagiarized probably 50 different places in the Bible I could take you to. Another discussion. I don't want to get thrown out of here. But the miracle of what happens when you help another person, how it seems impossible to think about your own problems, and how there's a high there that I've never been able to experience chasing anything else. And it doesn't have shame and guilt attached to it like everything else does. So that's what I did. I got really active in institution work and just went about the business of being sober. And I'd like to end it there. Unfortunately, I'd be selling you guys short if I didn't tell you the whole story. And that whole story is that I was sober from 98 to 2010. And in 2010, I'm the alcoholic in Dr. Silkworth's story, where he says that the manic depressive type, which a whole chapter could be written, and I'm that guy, and I have a problem other than alcohol, and that problem will sabotage everything else. I believe that if you have a problem like that, no matter what the diagnosis is, that they have to be treated concurrently, because if not, one will upset the other one. And in this particular situation, I'm starting to speed up and rev up, and I've lost the dog. Avon, stop it. Sorry. So I'm starting to speed up, and I could tell you one of the most amazing things I got from both AA and treatment for that problem other than alcohol was the fact that I had 5 seconds to think before I acted, and I lost it. And when I'm in that space where I'm revved up, and I'm, if you look at 1 in 10, 1 being severely depressed and 10 being, manic to the point where you're the son of God. I was at a 7 or an 8, and I didn't realize it. But looking back, I remember buying my first home and buying like $4,000 worth of artwork from the same artist, and that's not normal. I never owned a piece of art in my life, but I'm buying things like that, and so I guess started to like talking to people that weren't my wife on Facebook and acting out like that. And it started with an ex-girlfriend and just kind of glorifying the past, and it became an obsession. And in 2010, 2011, all the way to 2014, 15, it was a lot of hiding my cell phone, conversations that she discovered one of them, but just a whole different person. And, I got this sobriety date, and that's, I spent some time in Al-Anon because of my dad's alcoholism. And one thing I always kind of appreciate about their program is they don't have a date, really. I mean, there are those that say, I've been a grateful member of Al-Anon for so and so long, or this date. But the reality of it is, I can have a sobriety date, and I can wear that proud and get up on that podium, and especially Mike Towers can spin yarn like everything's great, and go home and do horrible things that are nothing like the 10th step and 11th step, were designed for. And that's what happened. And in 2014, I'm at the center of a church, and charger for the phone. I'm at the center of a church and active, and I end up cheating on my ex-wife, with another married member of that church. So now it's a scandal, and now we're running off to California. It's like a geographical cure because it's such an embarrassment for my ex. And we go off to California, where A is a little bit different, and believe me, if I'm going to find friends and recovery and stuff, I'm going to do it. But it was really hard connecting there. I really discounted what it'd be like to leave everybody. But I did stay active in Alcoholics Anonymous, but I got very, very angry. The marriage was a sham. She never forgave me. And going there was just a ticking time bomb, to the point where she finally told me on June 1st of 2017 that she didn't want to be my wife anymore, and she wanted me to go. And it was a horrible fight. And at 2 a.m., I packed up everything I could. I had to throw some things away because they wouldn't fit in the car. And I drove from California back to Maryland. And I ended up at the Boston Inn. And this is a Westminster group, so you guys are familiar with the Boston Inn. I used to drive by it when I was younger, and I would say, who in the heck stays at this place? But here I am staying at it. And not only that, my credit card had run out, and the manager came to my room and told me that I had to leave because of the credit card. And so I got my dog, and I'm walking him behind Boston Inn, and I see some mattresses behind the dumpster, and I think that, I wonder how long they've been here because I don't have anything, and we need a bed. And that's what untreated alcoholism, or well, I'd say, again, that problem other than alcohol, but just because I tried, I went to essay, and I did therapy so much to try to figure out what was going on, and it took me experiencing that to really chase the other side of it. But because I was very active in AA still and very, very confused, but rock bottom nonetheless. But I had Alcoholics Anonymous, and I knew what to do to pick it up. But here's now I got a fourth and fifth step to write, and all those other ones I had done, maybe I'd done 3 or 4 fourth and fifth steps in the 19 years I'd been sober, and wanted to do every one of them. Couldn't wait to do them, but this one I couldn't do. How could I resent someone that I love so much and I wanted to be with, and I hated myself so much? And I think I wrote 17 pages on just me and her on this fourth and fifth step, and it took me weeks. I mean, I avoided it. I made every excuse. I actually went to Cook Forest, which is AA's oldest retreat, and it's cabins in the forest, and there's rivers, and I said, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to get my big book. I'm going to get some paper. I'm going to get in a canoe. I'm going to canoe out on this river, and I'm going to do my 4-step under the sun with God, clearly down on me. I'm going to set the stage for this thing. And so that's what I do. I get the book. I'd already read it. I start writing, and I hit a rock, and the boat flipped, and my big book and 4th step went right down the river. And I remember walking back, and I was so angry. I was so mad at God. How could you pick this life for me? How could this be it? And I remember every time that I was in sin, and I would get on my knees and ask God to forgive me, and please, please don't take away my ex-wife. I realized that, at some point he's going to take her away from me because she needs to be well too, and I'm killing her. But I'm so angry at him, and I'm walking down the street, and then it kind of dawned on me, God is telling me you don't need to set a stage. You don't have to be on a river in a canoe under the sunlight. Just come to me. Just come to me, however you are. And when I got home, I wrote that 17 pages and the rest of that fourth and fifth step, and a lot of it on California and California AA, and I healed, and I got well. And I tried not to date, and then for a significant period, I didn't date. And I read a couple of books, and I read a book called The Ragamuffin Gospel. And The Ragamuffin Gospel is a Christian book, so I won't get into that specifically. But the idea of it is that God did what he did, and the last thing on that is sent his son for me, and he sent them for ragamuffins, for throwaways, for the worst of mankind. That God didn't come to fix the upright, right? It's not the well that need a hospital, it's the sick. He came for, chokes me up every time, he came for sick people. He came for sinners. And when I realized that he had done all that, not specifically for mankind, but specifically for me, I decided, you know what? I won't date, and I can a day at a time obey him in every area of my life. And things got better. And 4 months later, I was doing an Impact Week event for my church at a facility that does hires felons. It does reentry and workforce development. And we were huddling up outside. I was leading this event, and a woman walked up. She was 31, 32. I'm 41, 42. And I could just tell. I mean, she had a glow in her eyes and a peace about her, and she just seemed amazing. She was cute, and she was church. She had to be a lot of crazy people in church. She had to be good, right? So we went in to do this event, and I started asking her, she's from Colorado. I said, who'd you come here with? Oh, no, I came by myself. And I'm like, oh, you still by yourself? Yeah, I'm single. Well, I'd like to take you out. And she's like, I'd like that. And 4 months later, I proposed at that facility on a knee outside of that facility, and asked her to marry me. And the name of that facility is tattooed on my wrist, and it's Second Chance. I met her at Second Chance. And this last 2 years, I said before that if I'd have gotten everything in my wildest dreams, I'd have sold myself short. And Kathy P used to say that all the time, and I used to say it. And I right before going to California, I was pursuing a professional speaking career, and I was telling college kids, what they needed to do, because I went from college dropout to earning 2 degrees, one of which not highest honor, but with great honor, which, not with my past, not the way I did things. But now I wanted to share that with college kids. I was already sharing in Alcoholics Anonymous and doing a lot of institution work, but I wanted to tell college kids how not to throw their career away drinking and using drugs. And so that was going great. But now here in California, I'm not pursuing any of that, because how am I going to tell people how to live their lives? And I'm a liar, cheat, and a thief again. I'm not even qualified. And it took me a couple of years, met Christina, got married, started to believe that maybe I had a message again, putting one foot in front of the other, doing the next right thing. And I was added to a speakers bureau for a corporation that's got 300,000 members. And of course, COVID hits, so God loves to play with me. Like my college football career, I got hands like Art Monk, Ryan Trent. And yet I'm not fast and couldn't jump or get open. I'm a professional speaker, but like live conferences have gone away completely. So God's just refining me even more. But, I worked the 12 steps again. I'm active. Being a substance abuse counselor, I do not look at that as the work, staying sober. That's a job. And when it's a job, there's a commute, and there's, clients that make me upset, and arguing with coworkers, and therefore I still have to do my service work outside of work. But I'm active, and working the steps has changed everything for me again. And I didn't have to take a drink or drug. And I've navigated everything, fortunately, without having to do that. December 8th of last year, I was driving home from work. My father went back out in 2006. And he stayed out. He would put together maybe a year here and there. I don't think he ever really celebrated. And, if you would have asked me with everything I had to deal with, I had to throw him out of the house about a month before that, because I had him staying there. And I went on a work trip. And the moment I did, he had my wife driving him around, getting him pills from different Doc in the boxes. And I said, well, I can't have Chester here right now. So I had to kick my dad out. It was the last time I saw him. But fortunately, in September, I went to a men's retreat with my church and kind of come to terms that my dad was an amazing father, that he was ill. He was a psychotherapist. He one phenomenal drug counselor. He taught me everything I need to know about counseling and Alcoholics Anonymous, and he was an amazing father. And if you'd have asked me what my dad's end would be, I would have told you that it's going to be like 96%, of people that want help with drugs and alcohol. They don't make it. I don't know what that looks like for each person, but unfortunately, in rehab anyway, we're talking about a 4% success rate for people that come in there and want help, or at least are somewhat motivated. And so he's not going to make it. I don't know what it's going to look like, but I'm waiting for the call. And on December 8th, I'm driving down 295. I'm looking for something to read here from the big book. So I'm driving down 295, and I get the call. I get the call from a detective, homicide detective, in Gaithersburg. And she says, Mr. Towers, and I think it's a domestic with his wife or something. Like, I'm pretty annoyed that I got the call. And he said, I'm sorry to tell you that your father died. And I was waiting for the call, but I wasn't ready for the call. And I was working in live conferences, doing video engineering and camera work and stuff like that. And after everything got settled with my dad, who died of complications due to, I think he had gotten about 100 Xanax and Percocets 2 days before that, and was down to about 30 apiece when they found him. I got back into counseling. And I said, I got some gifts here. I always said the counseling chose me, and I'm going to go out and I'm going to do my best to make my dad proud. And working in California in treatment, a lot of spoiled kids come out to California, Laguna Beach area I worked at, San Juan Capistrano, and they would come in and, Mr. Mike, my life's a wreck. It's a mess. I'm gonna die if I don't stop using. I'm gonna lose my wife. I'm gonna lose my family, lose my kids. I gotta stop. When you're writing a treatment plan up, it's like, okay, so what's your problem? I can't stop drinking. I can't stop using, and it's gonna kill me. Okay, great. Well, what do you want? What are your goals? Mr. Mike, I got to get sober. I got to. I've got to do it this time. And I'm like, great. Well, let me read you something. And I would pull out the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous. Now, mind you, my first individual counseling class at CCBC, they asked us who in here is in a 12-step program or in Alcoholics Anonymous. And I was proud. About 6 of us, a lot of people in counseling, substance abuse counseling school, have recovery backgrounds. And I raised my hand, and he said, well, you guys are going to be biased counselors because you think the AA is the best way. And I disagreed with that because I know my dad's experience, there's a lot of different ways. But 21 years later, I am thoroughly convinced that Alcoholics Anonymous is the #1 way to get sober.